Today we're going to talk about a topic close to my heart, which is self-care, but more from the standpoint of what is happening in the industry that's growing around self-care. I'm super happy to see that there's so much more awareness, so much more openness in a way to the idea of self-care. I don't think we've hit upon the real depth of self-care yet, but I'm happy to see that things are starting somewhere and they're growing from there. However, today I'd like to quickly get to the bottom of self-care because I don't want people misunderstanding what it is and therefore trying and failing in this area and not knowing why it's failed or why it's not sustainable or why things aren't quite adding up. Right? I really want people to see it clearly, understand the challenge that it is, take it on, and enjoy the benefits. And be able to see the benefits clearly because you've taken it on from the appropriate perspective. Now we have the campaign of self-care being this quick, easy thing that you do for yourself to feel better about what you're currently doing. This is the most superficial layer possible. Tough love today, guys. The second one is that self-care is an attachment onto mental health practices. Self-care is an attachment to wellness practices. Self-care is an attachment to lifestyle practices. This is, again, more in depth, but also incorrect. Self-care is its own thing, and although we can see parts of self-care in everything, these things still are not self-care, even though they have the pieces. We'd say that self-care is more close in proximity to health's original understanding. Therefore, the fragments of health fall underneath this thing, and we can see the pieces of self-care in it because health has been fractured in that way. However, self-care in a sense is in the restoring of the model. And we're switching from the kind of self-preservation way of thinking about stuff to the body heals itself and therefore creates solutions kind of thing. Meaning that our whole perspective has to do this big turn and circle about and say that because our body is giving us answers, we need to see why the solution itself is giving us this result. And the only way to change the result is to understand that dynamic. Now, this makes self-care more elusive in a way. I always say self-care is exactly what you don't know. Therefore, adding more context, more bigger picture stuff to the perspective to bring about results you have not yet seen because these are things you did not know. That's part of it. To be a little bit more to the point of these other two ways of looking at self-care, because they're not wrong, they're just not as completed, for lack of a better way to put it. So we'd say that self-care is something you do for others, even though it is required of you, right? So we're saying here that nobody can walk your own path, therefore you walking your own path creates change. This change then is reflected back at you by the people around you. Right? This is not very new in the sense of that way of thinking. The things that agitate you about other people are things about yourself, with that kind of thinking. We have the fact that even though you're doing stuff seemingly about building your personal environment of health, when you become healthy yourself, you actually give more completely to others. And in giving this completeness to others, you can see in others the refinements of yourself. Another way to put this is that when an artist creates something, he gets to see the beauty of his artwork. Other people appreciate his artwork, therefore signaling to him even what is beautiful about it. Often being the person that is the person that takes care of people, we miss the actual definition of what it's like to be taken care of. Therefore, in doing it, we're kind of putting ourselves in the environment to start learning about how great it is to be taken care of. This is the challenge. We can also put in here the kind of concept of the wounded healer is the only person that can heal, meaning that you have to overcome your own challenges to be able to give experience in the form of wisdom to other people, leading them in their challenges as well, because you know so well what it's like to go through it. You can give the appropriate value to things that they're facing, creating a more whole perspective in their journey. Now, this is more what self-care is about. It is the hardest kind of health possible. Why? Because it has the ability to make the largest kind of change possible. And we're going to have the equivalent exchange here where you get what you put in out. And knowing that, we're able to give it the right context. So when we say, this thing that is so valuable that if I achieve it, it sticks with me for the rest of my lifetime. Not only that, it has the ability to be passed down through generations. So my children will inherit this self-care health thing from me. If it's going to be that powerful, it's going to require some heavy lifting, more or less. And knowing that, it is not the first thing that you do. Most people might think, hey, yeah, I'm going to start my self-care thing right now because that's important. Not quite. You would have to have some experience pursuing some kind of health for some kind of healing, right? So you're going to have, for example, a knee problem. You went to several practitioners with this. You're now on your journey of health and you've been there. You've kind of put a few pieces together. You know what sounds right, what works, what doesn't work. You have an idea. Not that you actually know, but you have some kind of history with this thing. Now you have become prepped for the starting of self-care, and self-care is going to be harder. It is going to be, you can enter the self-care journey from either the mental, physical, or emotional aspect. This is true, but you do have to have some kind of journey there, which makes this similar to philosophy in the sense that you must live life before you can have a philosophy. You must go through a health journey before you can tap into self-care. So when somebody tells you, hey, you know what, we could give you these self-care tips in such and such a time, and you'll be able to do it by yourself immediately, is incorrect. It's absolutely false. It's impossible. They are talking about something other than self-care. They might be talking about the mechanical movement of self-care, which is just an action. You do these actions and this will be a result, maybe. Highly unlikely. It might give you some insight, which is great. It is a difference because you're doing something other than you're doing before, hopefully. So this is good. But will you be able to really grasp this self-care thing? It is just not possible in that kind of time. And without some kind of experience and without having some kind of philosophy for yourself on your journey, it's going to be really challenging. This is why self-care is not able to be accessed by, I'd say, generally people under the age of 25. You have to live through that life. Coming closer to your 30s now, it's going to be more applicable for you in the sense of guidance and restoring thought processes and stuff like that. When you're older, still better, even more powerful for you. You can make some huge changes and wrap your mind around some very powerful concepts. This is true. If you're under the age of 25, what you'll be able to get is value, right? So essentially your parents teach you values. This is very important to deal with. You want to have some kind of determination. You want to have some kind of open-mindedness. You want to have some kind of independence. You want to have some kind of creativity in you. These things that are generally developed in younger years are going to be useful at some point when you get to the perspective of self-care, but you will not be able to access it beyond those times. All right, so I was going to make this short, but I went into it a little bit more in depth than I'd like. But this is the whole self-care thing.